This is going to be my first video on plants for preppers or homesteaders or beekeepers. Doesn't really matter which. Whoever you are, whatever you are, it's important that you know the plants that are growing in your area, and particularly the wild ones. So I was just recently, working on my bees and just trying to work out what plants they were working for pollen and nectar. And there's a lot going on at the moment. So it's June 20th at 6,400 feet, and this here is a wild rose, and it's an excellent plant to get to know, whether you're a homesteader or a prepper, or what do they call them now, wildcraft, or whatever you are. This is an excellent one because it grows nearly everywhere. It's extremely hardy. This is actually the first plant. This is on my own personal property. This is actually the first plant that I actually got to grow on my own place, and it's just been growing every year and producing rose hips, which is the fruit. And I don't know if you can see it in this video, but behind the rose in the background, in the greenery, there's rose hips there left over from last year. And rose hips are mildly sweet. You can, depending on how they were grown and how much water, I guess, they're mildly sweet, but very tasty. They're very high in vitamin C, which is important. Depending on where you are or whatever, vitamin C is one of those vitamins that you just can't do without, and when you do without it, you get scurvy. So yeah, rose hips, high in vitamin C, very important. And the actual flower, you can see it's got large amounts of pollen on it, and I know the bees do very well with the nectar. So if you've got an area, I don't have too many around here, if you've got an area where you've got a lot of rose hips, then that's actually a good place to have your bees. There's something else I was going to say. Oh yeah, normally you'll find wild roses growing in, they like water, they like lots of water, so they'll be near stream beds, anywhere they can get lots of water. Where they are here is just on the edge of you can't see it, but there's a trailer which kind of drains right to where the roses are, so they get plenty of water from that. And yeah, very, very good plant to get to know. Something else I've noticed is that the pack rats collect the wild rose stalks and thorns and pack those into their nests. I don't know if that's for protection or if they're actually eating the thorny stems later in the year. I don't know, but they definitely like to eat them. And I can normally tell when I've got a pack rat around because he'll start chewing. So at the moment it's all green and lush. If I'd had a pack rat nearby, the pack rat would be chewing off those stems and carting them away. So yep, that's something else to note. And I don't know if you can see the blood on my wrist, but they have very good defenses. Mean, nasty thorns. My first experience with wild rose was in Australia, when my friend Noel said these are poisonous. He actually said they were poisonous. They weren't. He was mistaken. But he said these are poisonous, but the pigs love them, because we were out pig hunting at the time. And so it was a couple of years later that I managed to actually identify what those berries were, the rose hips, and I realised that no, they're not poisonous. They're actually very, very good for you. So, alright, that was my first one. Wild rose. Just a addendum to the wild rose. The rose hips, you can collect those and boil them up, and you can make a very tasty wine out of the rose hips. Last time I did one, I actually added a bit of just sugar to it to increase the alcohol content, but the actual rose hip wine that I made was very tasty. So that's something else to know about the rose hips.